I think you'll agree that our thoughts go out to the families and friends of the dead and the injured following yesterday's bombing in Boston. This is another horrific attack that needs to be looked into thoroughly. I've put off doing this video because I wanted to watch and see how the story unfolded before I said anything. You see, within a couple of hours of the bombing, we were getting eyewitness reports that there were drills being carried out on the same day. University of Mobile's cross-country coach, Ali Stevenson, who was near the finish line when the bombs went off, said about the presence of bomb-sniffing dogs that they kept making announcements to the participants, "Do not worry, it's just a training exercise." Also, the Boston Globe tweeted that a controlled explosion was being undertaken also that day. The tweet said, "Officials, there will be a controlled explosion opposite the library within 1 minute as part of the bomb squad activities." Now, I'm not crying conspiracy theory, but come on people, why do all the so-called terror events that happen in the West happen on the same day that officials are carrying out terror exercise drills, with the same scenario always being the same that actually happens that day? 9/11, there were multiple drills taking place, including Tripod 2, which had a scenario of crashing planes into buildings. Remember Peter Powell on 7/7? His terror drill envisaged the exact same bombs going off at the exact same trains at the exact same times as actually what happened.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team, and the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is, get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario?
Almost precisely.
And the Madrid bombing. A few hours before the Madrid bombings, NATO were carrying out terror exercises. If you can be bothered to look into all the other so-called failed terror plots over the last decade, you will clearly see that if you took out the authorities, i.e. the CIA, the FBI, and other government agencies, if you remove them from the so-called terror plot equation, then you simply do not have a terror plot. Governments grab mentally ill people from the street, pay them cash to talk about a terror plot, and then they bust them. So here we have the government fomenting these terror attacks so that they can foil them just before the trigger supposedly gets pulled to make the agency look good so they can increase their budget and their power. It's not rocket science. And here we have the Boston Marathon bombing, where on the same day the officials were carrying out a terror drill. I don't know for sure if this latest bombing is staged, but the mere fact that a government-sponsored terror drill was taking place that day, plus that they were doing a controlled explosion elsewhere in the city, would certainly give the FBI some leads. But not that they'll follow these leads. They'll blame right-wing conservatives or the new white Al-Qaeda. You see, the whole Homeland Security apparatus has now swung from Al-Qaeda to patriots in America. They want their guns. After all, they can't blame Al-Qaeda anymore because anyone who is only half paying attention will realise that Al-Qaeda is working for Obama and NATO. In fact, a senior Council on Foreign Relations fellow, Ed Hussein, has hailed the presence of Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria, saying that the Free Syrian Army actually need Al-Qaeda in their ranks. We need to watch the developments of this very carefully.